Welcome everyone to our Caselle and Revver Introducing AI Automation for Caselle webinar today. I'm Jesse Wood, our CEO of Revver, joined with Eric Selyus, who handles our strategic partnerships here at Revver. We could not be more excited to share with you some of the new things coming out this month from Caselle and Revver on how to work better through invoice processing in your AP modules in Caselle. Today, we're going to be covering how we're bringing AI into the Caselle work stream. We'll then touch briefly on the benefit to the Caselle customers, and then we'll cover Caselle's sneak peek for invoice processing. Now, this is really going to be the highlight of what we're going to be focusing on in the webinar today. We'll then be getting into a little more detail in the demonstration of how we're doing the automation inside the integration. That will cover our email import functionality, intelligent processing and routing, and updating the Caselle ERP with the information passing from Revver. And then we'll, of course, highlight the new pending invoice section in Caselle. Following that, we'll talk very briefly about the integration's availability, when you can take part in that, and then what you'll need to do to get started. To begin, Eric's going to talk with us just a little bit about the problem that every AP team is really facing while they drown in paperwork.
Thanks, Jess. You know, I talk to Caselle customers all the time, and every time that I start talking to them and I talk about their invoice processing, it always comes down to a manual process, right? Does it sound familiar? You got a stack of papers. You're taking papers from one desk to another desk. You're getting coding. You're getting approvals on it. It takes days and days and days to process your invoices. You know, we went out and looked at a study, and some of the manual labor that it takes to invoice or to process an invoice, right? It could be anywhere from $7, $8 up to $18. And you take that and you multiply that out by the hundreds of invoices that you're doing, whether that's in a week or a month, depending on how many you're processing. That can add up quickly, right? Just 200 invoices in a week could be costing you $1,500 each week. And that's on the low side. If you say that the cost can go up to $18, that's going to be much higher, right? You can add that up, $6,000 a month or $75,000 a year, right? So we're going to be looking at how Revver's automation and AI can slash those costs by up to 80% per invoice, right? And AP invoicing is just the start. We'll talk about some other areas where this can be helpful as well. We'll focus today's webinar on the AP side of things, but you'll be able to see how this can apply in a lot of different areas of your business. This is, you know, just an introduction to us. We've been in business for many years. I think many of you that are on here know us, right? We've got a lot of local governments. We're over 200 local governments we've been working with. The one thing I wanted to point out here is just one of our AP clerks that we'd worked with gave a quote, right, that talked about some of the time savings. And she talked about saving hundreds of hours processing invoices, right? She used to have to do things manually. Now things are now automated through Revver and Caselle, and she's saving hundreds of hours. So I just wanted to point that out, Jess, that some of the ones that we've been doing some beta testing with, this is already proving to be a huge time saver for them.
Yeah, you know, I think it's interesting as individuals talk about the time savings. That's hard to quantify sometimes. We're talking about 80%. We're talking about this individual saving hundreds of hours. But you're going to see in the integration today where some of that time savings really is lost in the manual processing of invoices. And that comes from whether you're having to receive that invoice, grab the files, bring them in digitally, if that's what you're doing in your process, finding the departments that are going to be approving those and getting the approvals. There's a lot that goes into an invoice process. And so what we're going to highlight today is how we take so much of that work out. And I think you'll see for yourselves how that really can save hundreds of hours. So to begin, we're just going to talk a little bit about this integration and its benefit to Caselle customers. I had a great opportunity a short while ago to sit down with Scott Cook, the CEO of Caselle, and talk with him just a little bit about how he sees this integration bringing value to Caselle customers. So let's hear what Scott had to say. From your experience, how can AI-powered document automation really support finance teams in local government?
You know, Jesse, we've been in this business a long time, and over our 47 years of helping our customers with data entry and document storage, they spend a lot of time in those two areas and a lot of money in those areas. And so what we think is going to happen with this AI-powered integration, it's going to save them a tremendous amount of time and make them more efficient and allow them to be able to retrieve those documents in a much more efficient way and certainly quicker, and be able to serve their citizens a lot better.
It's awesome. We're excited for that. We too think that Revver is going to help remove work from everyday processing that you're going to see inside of this integration. Now, this slide is just indicating all the different steps that are going to be automated during this process. And so we're going to start with email monitoring in one of our simple examples. That email monitoring is going to be watched by Revver. Revver's then going to take that email and strip the attachment and bring that in for processing. During that processing, it's actually going to use our Smart Extract AI to bring all of the important information over that you'll need from that invoice into Caselle. We then use that information to route it intelligently in Revver to the right and correct location. And then that information is going to be sent directly to Caselle in preparation for processing. And then it's going to wind up in a brand new pending invoice section inside of Caselle. And really, you know, Eric, as we talk about the speed and the processing, this area is where you're going to focus. It's right down in that new pending invoice section for Caselle. All the rest of these processes are really going to happen in an automated way. And we're going to show you how Revver really is removing the work from everyday processing. Now, I'm going to start by going into my email, and we're going to actually take an invoice. We're going to prepare it for the city of Revver. And we're going to have this invoice is actually for books for a new library. And so this is just the email that I'm going to start by sending this directly to Eric. And he's going to bring this in automatically through our process and receive that into Caselle.
Yeah, so Jess, here's what that email looks like when it shows up to me. So it comes in just into my email. That's all it is. I've set up now inside of Revver to watch when I get an email that comes into my library area. That's automatically going to pick up and pull that attachment off and send that into Revver. So we can go ahead and take a look at that if you want to.
Okay, so here we are in Caselle Connect Online. This should seem familiar to most of you. You're looking at your dashboard. What will not seem familiar to you is the new pending invoice section that is part of our integration. Now, this is really cool, Eric. What we've done thus far is just showed you how an email was sent from a vendor, and you showed that you had received that email. But actually, all that stuff that we talked about, the processing where we took the email, took the metadata from that, read it through our Smart Extract, routed it to the right location so that it could show up here in pending invoices. That all happened automatically. And what it was doing is it was pulling the vendor, ACS collections, it pulled the invoice date, it pulled the invoice total, and the department, the library, and has placed this now ready for you just to proceed to finish entering the invoice. We've already saved a lot of time. In just a little bit, we'll show you actually the details of how we did that. But do you want to walk us through entering an invoice?
Yeah, so let's go into entering invoices. This screen is going to be familiar to everybody. This is the regular enter invoices screen in Caselle Connect Online. The thing you're going to notice over here is that you're not having to select the vendor. You're not having to type in the invoice number. You don't have to select the invoice date. As Jesse mentioned, we pulled all that information out of the invoice and we automatically put that into the enter invoice screen for you. So the only thing on this screen that I'm going to have to put in there is the due date. So let's just select the due date. I'm going to hit continue. Now, this is the details. Again, information's put in there. The only thing that I'm going to have to put in here, let me just type in a description of what this invoice is for. Everything else is put for me. I'm going to add the detail. And yes, of course, I'm over budget. So let's approve that. I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to save the invoice. Now, what this is doing is it's going to save that invoice in Caselle. It's also going to take the invoice and it's going to move that invoice from the pending invoices to the regular. It's going to find the vendor. It's going to find the right vendor, go down to the invoices folder for that vendor, and it's going to move the invoice into there for us. Now, why is that important? Because the next step in your process is going to be the approval, right? We just entered the invoice and now it's going to go out to the approval. We had it set up for the library. So now this is going to be routed to the head of the library for approvals. Okay. They're going to be able to come in just like normal. They'll come over here. They're going to go to the approve invoices screen. Okay. You can see there's the ACS collections invoice we just put in there. if you're not familiar with this, you're going to see a new icon in here that you can add. So you can take a look at that. So this person that's going to be approving the invoice, they can just click this and they can preview the invoice before they actually approve it. Okay, so here it is. Here's the invoice. I can scroll through. I can look at the details of that. I can come back in here. That looks good to me. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit approve, submit, and now I'm done. So that's all it takes, Jess. You put that in there. I had a few clicks on the invoice entry screen. I saved the details. I saved the invoice, and now it routed out to be approved. And now anybody that's going to be approving that invoice can preview that like I showed from this screen.
That is fantastic. Okay, let's jump back to our presentation and walk through exactly what happened in a little more detail. So as you could see, we started from email monitoring. And so Revver is configured to monitor particular email accounts. And in this case, what we were doing with the city of Revver, you were actually monitoring some things that were coming in from that vendor. And when it came in, it knew actually how to route that in Revver correctly. And so Revver, once that's routed correctly into Revver, then took that invoice and took it off of the email itself, the attachment, and it stored that and sent that into our AI processing. Once that processing was completed, it went into intelligent routing, and then the data was then extracted from that and put into Caselle, and then that's where we wound up kind of in there. So when you really look at this, Eric, this is actually the stuff you're going to focus on. We're going to focus on all of the rest of this. You're going to focus on just what's coming into your pending invoices section inside of Caselle, really streamlining the work that you actually have to do to get information in.
Can I add one point to that, Jess? So too, we talked about that very first part was email monitoring. So we're watching that email. It works if I drag and drop files in as well. So that first step, it may be through an email that we're watching. I could also just drag a file in there. The rest of those steps are all going to follow along.
Yeah, it's a great point, Eric. So we're going to start by sending 2 emails to the city of Revver. The first of which is going to be for some office equipment that we're going to send to the administration department. I'll go ahead and I'll send that. The second is going to be for the Parks and Recreation department, and I'm going to send that for some sprinkler parts. Now we're back over in Revver, and I'm going to actually have Eric walk us through a little bit of what's happening on that email, because we've got that email configured to route some things directly into Revver in a pretty slick way.
So as I showed you before, Jess, so you sent those emails to me. If we come in here to email imports, okay, I've configured this. I put in my credentials in here for my email address, and it's watching some specific areas inside my email for things to come in. So one idea in this example, I've configured it so the emails that just drop into this folder are automatically going to come into Revver. Okay. You could make it so you're monitoring the email. You could drag the files into an invoices folder, which I've done with some of you customers, but this one's going to be automatic. So anything that comes into my library folder is where I'm going to be watching. I'm going to pull off those attachments and I'm going to put them into a pending invoices folder inside of Revver for my library. Okay. I only want to pull the attachments, right? And then after when I'm done with that, I'm just going to put that email back into an archive. I could trash that if I wanted to. Okay. But that's how I pull that. That's how we're monitoring your emails to pull out those invoices and automatically attach that.
So emails that are coming in this case, you're actually managing that email automatically in the inbox as well. So when emails come, they automatically get routed into Revver, and then you're taking care of them, either archiving or trashing those as they need to be in your email account itself.
Yep, we clean up after ourselves, Jess. Okay, so now I've shown how we've extracted that attachment. We've brought it in through Revver. And now let me show you where it goes. We brought it in through our email imports. Now if I come back to my documents, I'm going to come down here to my pending invoices. Okay, so you remember the first one came through my pending invoices to the administration department. And you can see here's that invoice for Staples. Okay, the other one that I brought, what was the other one that we sent in? I think it was a Parks and Rec. So if I come down to Parks and Rec, I look at the pending invoices. Again, here's that invoice for Parks and Rec from Plumber Supply. Okay, so those 2 emails, that's how we showed you. It came from email. Jesse's emailed to me, came to my inbox. We pulled off the attachments. and directly drop them into Revver. Now, what does Revver do with that now, or what does Caselle do now, right? So we've configured Caselle to watch inside these pending invoices for these different departments. Okay, you can have whatever departments you want to configure in here. I've set up a whole bunch for the example. Okay, but that's what we're watching for. Now, when those invoices have gone through the smart extract, that metadata is pulled out, that's a trigger now to go back and tell Caselle we've got some invoices that are ready to populate in the pending invoices. Okay, so if I come back over here into Caselle, I'm on my dashboard. I'm going to come over here to my pending invoices. Okay, and now you can see, Jess, there's the 2 invoices that you sent off an email. I haven't done anything with them. I could now continue that forward, entering the invoices just like I did before. I won't bore you with that now, but I wanted to show how we got those invoices from email into Revver. So it takes a little bit of configuration, but once that's done, everything's automatic, and it's going to save a ton of time sending these invoices in. Again, starting in Caselle or starting in Revver and bringing them into Caselle. Okay, Jess, so I showed you how we bring in these invoices through the email automatically, but I mentioned earlier that there's other ways that you can bring the invoices in, right? And they're still going to show up here in the pending invoices. So if we come over here into Revver, I'm going to show you how we just drag and drop a file into the correct location that Caselle is watching for, and then it's going to pull that into the pending invoices as well. So if you come up here, let's go up to Fire. Okay, we'll go up to the Fire department. Let's go to the pending invoices. And we're going to upload. I've got an invoice in here for, let's go to AMCO. Let's bring that invoice in. Okay. So we bring this invoice into this pending invoices area. We dragged and dropped it. We didn't have to do it through the email imports. Okay. Now this is going through those processes that Jesse talked about before. We're going to be doing the smart extract. We're going to be looking at the metadata. We'll extract that metadata. When all of that's complete, that's going to now trigger over to Caselle to say, hey, we've got another invoice ready to go into the pending invoices. Okay, so let's see, let's watch how that works. Now, if we look here at the metadata, we can see that now smart extract is finished. It's pulled that information off of the invoice. It's put it into this metadata area. And now this is ready to go over into Caselle. I can come over here and I can look at the preview if I'd like as well, but I can see that that's all done. Now, this triggered and told Caselle that we've got another invoice ready to go in the pending screen. So if I come back over here into Caselle, let's come over to my pending invoices. And if you'll remember, I had 2 invoices there to begin with. Those came in through the email import. And I should have a third email now, or a third invoice now, that came in through the drag and drop. So you can see my staples. Here's my new one for AMCO. You can see it was for the fire department. Okay, and it's got all the relevant information that it pulled off of that invoice. Okay, so Jess, that's the other 2 ways. We can bring it in through email imports. We can also do a regular drag and drop. Both of those are going to result in the same pending invoices area for you to enter.
Fantastic, Eric. Eric, we've shown today how fast and efficient organizations are really going to be when they're doing invoice processing using this new integration between Revver and Caselle. We can't wait for individuals to use it. In a lot of conversations, though, that you've been having with some of these customers and potential users of this integration, privacy has really been at the concern for or a concern for them. Obviously, we do a lot with compliance and controls and security. We've been doing that for many, many years. But when it comes to this new AI and how we're using that to be more efficient, that's really where that questions come in, is how are you guys using my information in my account, and are you protecting that? With all of the use of Revver technology, we prioritize the customer's privacy, and Revver never trains its technology on your personal data. Your content is used only really to benefit your account. So as great as this integration is, I want to just highlight that the privacy is still there. None of your information or things that you're doing to benefit your account will ever be utilized in anyone else's.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. I know that is a #1 question that comes up all the time, is how is my data secure, and keeping it private. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
So Eric, let's talk just a little bit about when individuals will be able to access this. The Caselle pre-release update is going to be available later this month that features the pending invoice section and all of the integration that we've been highlighting today. Now, new Revver customers We're going to offer 2 free users throughout the end of the year to be able to take advantage of this great offer, and also just to make this as easy as possible for your organizations. Any additional users that you're using in your organization, if you sign up before the 31st of August, you will also receive 30% off of licensing and implementation. Again, just to make this a little bit easier for you to take advantage of this offer. The QR code that you see featured on screen right now is to help you get started. Now, to do this, there will be some connection with our team. They'll actually connect directly with you, Eric, to do this, but we'll help them get their account configured and ready for the integration.
Yeah, click the link and schedule a time with us. You'll get on a calendar. You'll be able to see a time that works for you. Get on and we'll have some additional conversations and help you get started.
We want to thank you guys for attending our webinar today. Some of you may have additional questions about what the integration can offer or just about Revver in general. And so if you click this QR code, you'll be able to learn more about both of our organizations and how we're working together.
Yeah, and there's also a link. Once you click here, you'll take you to a website. You can also, from there, click and schedule a time to meet with us again.
Fantastic.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time.